Lord have mercy. This man about to lose everything. The words slipped out of Maya Williams before she even knew she'd said them. Just a few minutes earlier, Maya had seen something she wasn't supposed to. Through the glass wall of the CEO's office, she spotted Richard Vaughn, billionaire real estate mogul, hunched over his desk. The man was a portrait of wealth and confidence in public tailored suits. Sharp jawline, hands that commanded empires, but not this morning. This morning, he looked beaten. Maya had paused, watching as he stared down at a stack of documents. His face was pale, his right hand trembling as he picked up a pen. He hesitated, then pressed the pen to the page. He was about to sign something. A knockdown feeling twisted in Maya's gut. Before she could process it, a harsh voice snapped behind her. "What the hell are you doing here?" She turned sharply to find Mr. Carver, her floor supervisor, barreling down the hallway. Thick-necked, red-faced, with breath like stale coffee and bile, he marched toward her like a freight train. I'm just doing my rounds, sir," Maya stammered, stepping back from the office window. "Rounds?" he spat. "Is that what we call spying now?" "No, sir. I didn't mean to, I saw you watching him," Carver snapped. "What were you hoping to see? Trying to find a weakness? Sell something to the press? People like you always looking for a shortcut." Her cheeks flushed. "I wasn't. I swear. Before she could finish, his hand flew faster than her thoughts. Smack. The sting spread across her cheek like fire. She stumbled back into her cart. A bottle of disinfectant toppled to the ground, clanking loudly against the floor, her vision blurred with tears. Her cheek throbbed. "That'll teach you to mind your place," Carver growled. "Yes, sir," she whispered, pressing a trembling hand to the side of her face. "I'm sorry." She wheeled the cart away, each step heavier than the last. Minutes later, desperate to breathe, she ducked into Richard Vaughn's office. He was gone. The chair sat empty behind the giant mahogany desk, the scent of expensive cologne and coffee lingering in the air. She wasn't supposed to be in here, but something made her stop. The folder was still there. She moved closer. Her eyes landed on the title, Declaration of Corporate Bankruptcy, filed under the name Richard Vaughn. Vaughn Development Group. Maya's heart skipped. She glanced at the numbers printed in bold on the first page. Total outstanding debt, $64 million. That couldn't be right. Her brow furrowed. She began scanning the list of creditors, companies, vendors, lenders. Some names were unfamiliar, but one stopped her cold. Continental Supply Partners. Her breath caught. The letters blurred as memories came flooding back. That name. She knew that name. It was the same company that ruined her father. Years ago, they had supplied faulty construction materials to his small contracting business, lied about quality, overbilled, disappeared after payment. Her father filed a complaint. No one listened. Within a year, he was bankrupt. Within 3, he was gone heart attack, they said. But Maya always believed it was heartbreak. And now, that same company was listed as a creditor? With a claim of $5.2 million, her fingers tightened around the edge of the paper. It didn't make sense. She scanned more entries. $12 million, $8 million, $15 million. Her lips moved as she added the figures. $47 million. Not 64. She ran the math again. It was too clean. Too intentional. A chill swept over her skin. Someone had padded the debt, added false creditors, or reused old ones, and Continental Supply Partners had no business being on that list. Not unless someone wanted them there. Maya swallowed hard. Her father's words echoed in her memory. If someone had told me sooner, I might have fought back. She looked around. The silence was deafening. Her hands trembled as she reached into her cart, pulled out a pen, and tore a sticky note from the side pouch. She scribbled, "Mr. Vaughn, the numbers on page 7 don't add up. Total debt is 47M, not 64M. Someone's lying. Please double check. A friend." She placed it on top of the folder, smoothing it with shaking fingers. Then she straightened the pages, wiped the faint smudge of blood from her cheek, and walked out of the room. In the basement, She clocked out at 7:48 a.m. But instead of heading straight to her car, she lingered in the concrete shadows of the parking garage. The slap still rang in her ear. Her heart still beat too fast. But deeper than the fear was something sharper. Anger, not just for what had happened this morning, but for what had happened to her father. She leaned against a pillar and waited. At 9:01 a.m., the black Mercedes slid into the garage. Richard Vaughn stepped out. He looked nothing like the man on the magazine covers. He looked hollow, heavy, worn down. He passed by her hiding spot without noticing. Maya said nothing, but she hoped he saw the note. At 9:17 a.m., her phone rang. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered in a whisper. "Hello, Miss Williams? This is Richard Vaughn. Are you still in the building?" Her throat closed. I am. Don't leave," he said urgently. "Please, I need to speak with you, right now." Click. Moments later, footsteps echoed down the ramp, fast, uneven. Then he was there, and in his trembling hand, he held the yellow sticky note. "Was it you?" he asked, voice cracked. "You wrote this?" Maya couldn't speak. She nodded. Richard Vaughn, Billionaire CEO, fell to his knees before her. Tears filled his eyes. "You just saved my life," he whispered. "You saved everything." And Maya Williams, blood on her cheek, shaking with rage and fear, stood still. Seen. Finally, if you felt Maya's pain, hit like and tell us where you're watching from. Who knows? Someone near you might be watching too. Richard Vaughn knelt on the concrete floor like a man whose world had stopped spinning. The yellow sticky note trembled in his hand, his knuckles white, suit pants darkening at the knees where they touched the dusty garage floor. He looked up at Maya with a face she never thought she'd see, stripped of ego, stripped of power, just a man with everything to lose. Maya stood frozen. The blood on her cheek had dried. Her fingers still tingled from the slap. But right now, all she could focus on was him, the billionaire, looking at her like she mattered. I didn't mean to intrude," she stammered, her voice barely more than breath. Richard shook his head slowly. "You didn't intrude. You saved me." She took a small step back. Her instincts screamed at her to run, to hide, to disappear like always. But something else held her there. Maybe it was the note. Maybe it was the name on that bankruptcy list. Or maybe it was the feeling that for once she had done something no one else saw. He stood up slowly, brushing dust from his knees. His voice, though still shaking, grew steadier. "Come with me." Maya blinked. "Sir? I need you to come back upstairs. You saw the numbers. You saw the documents. And there's someone who needs to answer for them." He looked her directly in the eye. "I want you in the room when it happens." She swallowed hard. "But you're not just anything," he said quickly. "You're the only one who noticed." She glanced toward the parking garage exit. Her Ford Focus sat there, quiet, safe, familiar. But the thought of returning to that life-scrubbing floors, staying silent, felt suddenly unbearable. Still, fear whispered in her ear, "You don't belong in rooms like his. You'll only make things worse." Richard must have sensed her hesitation. "I understand if you're scared," he said gently. "But whatever happens today, I promise you, I will not let anyone touch you again." Maya winced at his words. Her cheek still burned. She nodded slowly. "Okay." The elevator ride back to the 24th floor felt longer than any she'd taken. She stood beside him, eyes on the rising numbers, hands clenched in front of her. He didn't speak. Neither did she. But every passing second built something between them, not trust, not yet, but a fragile recognition. When the doors opened, the morning light poured in like it was waiting for them. The office was empty, still silent. The smell of leather chairs and fresh coffee hung in the air. She followed him to his office, trying not to let her footsteps echo too loudly. Richard walked straight to his desk, flipping through the folder. His eyes scanned the numbers again, this time slower, more precise. When he reached page 7, he held it up with a faint smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. 47 million, he murmured. Not 64. He looked at Maya. You said someone was lying. You're right, and I think I know who. Maya stayed silent. She wasn't ready to say the name. Not yet. Richard pulled out his phone, dialing quickly. Julie, he said when someone answered. Is Monroe in yet? A pause. Good. Tell him I want him in my office at 10. No delays. And find the security logs from this morning, see who accessed this floor before 8 a.m. He hung up and turned back to Maya. Austin Monroe is my partner. Been with me 15 years, helped build this company from the ground up. His jaw tightened. Which is why this betrayal, if it's true, will cost him everything. Maya hesitated, then asked softly, and if it's not? He looked at her. Then I'll apologize. But right now, I need to believe my instincts. Just like you trusted yours. He motioned for her to sit on the couch across from his desk. She lowered herself cautiously, careful not to touch anything. It felt wrong just breathing in that room, but it was too late to turn back now. Can I ask you something? Richard said, sitting across from her. She nodded. What made you look at the numbers? What made you care? Maya looked down at her hands, resting in her lap. My dad. He was a contractor. Real old-school hands, not suits. Trusted people too easily. Years ago, some supply company scammed him with cheap materials and fake invoices. No one helped. Not the union, not the banks. He lost everything. And he died, thinking nobody cared. Richard leaned forward. What was the name of the company? She looked up, her eyes steady now. Continental Supply Partners. He flinched. She continued. I saw it in your bankruptcy file. 5.2 million. Richard sat back, lips pressed in a thin line. That's not possible. We haven't worked with them in over a decade. They're on the list. Maya said. And if they're fake, then someone used them to pad the debt. Richard finished. Jesus. A knock at the door interrupted them. Julie, his assistant, poked her head in. Mr. Vaughn, I confirmed. Only one person accessed this floor before 8 a.m. today. She glanced at Maya, confused. It was her. Richard nodded. That's all I needed. Thank you. The door closed. He looked at Maya again. His voice quieter now. You were the only one who had a reason to walk away. And didn't. She lowered her gaze. Honestly, I almost did. But you didn't. She said nothing. Richard stood. You don't have to speak in the meeting. Just be in the room. Just knowing you're there, knowing what you saw, it might be enough to make Monroe crack. Maya took a deep breath. What if he tries to say I'm lying? He gave a half smile. Then I'll show them this. He held up the yellow sticky note. And I'll say this little piece of paper saved $1 billion empire. Maya smiled faintly. It was just a note. No, he said firmly. It was a warning. A line in the sand. And now we stand on the right side of it. The clock on the wall struck 9:42 a.m. 18 minutes until Austin Monroe walked into the office. And the truth would either burn everything down or set something right. At exactly 9:59 a.m., the silence on the 24th floor of Vaughn Tower felt alive. The sleek, glass-lined hallway outside the CEO's office shimmered under the overhead lights. The kind that never flickered, never failed, a luxury Maya had never known at home. She sat stiffly on the leather couch in Richard Vaughn's office, hands clasped tightly in her lap, eyes fixed on a spot on the floor that glinted like polished truth. Her bruised cheek still ached. The dried sting reminded her she didn't belong here. But the folded yellow sticky note on Richard's desk told her otherwise. Across the room, Richard adjusted his cufflinks. His face, though calm on the surface, betrayed a storm underneath. His jaw tightened every few seconds. His eyes flicked to the clock more than once. Whatever happens, he said quietly, don't let him make you feel small. Maya looked up. Sir? He met her eyes. People like Monroe are used to controlling the room, to making others feel like they're the ones who should apologize. But not today. She nodded, her throat dry. She had practiced what she'd say if she had to speak, but it wasn't the words she was afraid of. It was the look Monroe might give her. That look Carver had earlier, the one that said, "You don't belong. You should have stayed in your place." At 10 a.m. sharp, the intercom buzzed. Julie's voice, crisp and steady, came through. "Mr. Vaughn, Mr. Monroe is here." Richard gave Maya a final glance, then walked behind his desk. "Send him in." The door opened a moment later. Austin Monroe entered like a man arriving to sign a victory. Silver hair slicked back, gray suit tailored to perfection, cufflinks gleaming like the smile he flashed at Richard. "Well," he said, stepping in smoothly. "Didn't expect an audience." His gaze fell on Maya, and for the briefest moment, his brows lifted not in recognition, but in condescension. She saw it clear as daylight. "You bringing cleaning staff into executive meetings now?" he added, turning back to Richard with a chuckle. "Progressive. Very 2025. Richard didn't flinch. "Sit down, Austin." Monroe raised an eyebrow but obeyed. He took the seat across from Richard's desk. Legs crossed. Relaxed. Confident. "You look tired, Rick. Long night?" "I almost made the worst decision of my life," Richard said evenly. "Then I hope you didn't." Monroe smiled. Richard slowly pulled the bankruptcy folder toward him. "Funny thing," he said, opening the file. "I decided to read everything again this morning. Something didn't feel right." Monroe's eyes flicked to the folder, then to Richard's face. Richard continued. "$64 million in debt, you said. But when I did the math, it came up 47. Austin blinked once. "Must be a typo." Richard raised an eyebrow. $17 million is a hell of a typo. "I'll have legal look into it," Monroe said, brushing imaginary lint from his pants. "But Rick, you've been under pressure. It's easy to misread." Richard slid the sticky note across the desk. "I didn't notice it, but someone else did." Monroe's eyes dropped to the yellow paper. He read it, twice. For a second, something in his expression cracked, just a flicker. Then he smirked. "A janitor's prank." Maya's stomach clenched. "She's not a janitor," Richard said sharply. "She's the reason you're not in handcuffs right now." Austin laughed a sharp, empty sound. "You're taking her word over mine? I've been your partner 15 years, Rick. And in those 15 years, Richard said quietly, you learned how to bury things so deep no one would ever find them." Richard looked at Maya and nodded. She stood slowly. Her knees trembled slightly, but her voice was clear. "I saw the file when I was cleaning. I know I wasn't supposed to look, but something about the numbers felt wrong. I've seen enough bills in my life to know when they don't add up. I checked the totals 3 times. It wasn't a mistake." Austin's lip curled. "So now the help is running financial audits?" Maya looked him straight in the eye. "No, sir. Just didn't want to see someone get tricked the way my father did." Wasn't a fight ignited? The room went still. Richard rose from his chair, calm and composed. "I checked the security logs. Only one person accessed this floor before 8 a.m. Maya." He gestured toward the monitor behind him. "She also took photos of the documents. Would you like to see them?" Austin didn't respond. Richard tapped a key. The screen lit up. One by one, the original documents appeared side by side with altered versions. Names, amounts, signatures. Some entries matched, others didn't. Then came the last page, Continental Supply Partners. A company Richard hadn't done business with in over a decade. "You slipped them in," Richard said. "They ruined Maya's father. And you used them again. Why?" "Oak." Austin's jaw tensed. "This is ridiculous." Richard held up another folder. "Julie came to me last night. She kept copies of your emails, the ones between you and a Franklin Rogers, from that same supply company, the fake one you propped up to inflate the debt." For the first time, Austin didn't smile. "I know about the kickback," Richard added. "You were going to force the bankruptcy, buy the company's assets for pennies, and walk away clean." Silence filled the room. Then Monroe stood. "You think you can prove all this?" Based on a cleaning woman's word? No, Richard said, straightening his jacket. Based on your emails, her photos, and the security logs. Austin's eyes narrowed at Maya. You think he'll still remember your name in 6 months? You'll go back to scrubbing floors for people who don't even look at you. Richard's voice was low. Cold. Get out. Austin didn't move. The FBI's on their way, Richard said. That got him moving. He grabbed his briefcase, muttered something under his breath, and slammed the door on his way out. The glass shook. Silence fell. Richard looked at Maya. He was right about one thing, he said softly. I didn't know your name before today. She looked down. That's just how the world works, sir. He shook his head. No. That's how I worked. Blind. Maya felt something shift in the air. A weight lifting, not completely, but enough. Enough to breathe. The door slammed shut behind Austin Monroe like a gavel striking judgment, leaving behind only silence, thick, electric, and strangely holy. Maya stood in the middle of the room, uncertain whether she should sit, speak, or simply vanish the way she always did. The pressure in her chest hadn't lifted yet. Not fully. The room felt heavy with everything that had just been said, and everything it still meant. Richard Vaughn remained standing, staring at the space where Monroe had just stood. His expression wasn't triumphant. It wasn't angry either. If anything, it was tired, older, as if 10 years had settled on his shoulders in the span of one meeting. He finally turned back to Maya. You okay? He asked. She nodded once. Yes, sir. He took a breath, then gestured to the chair across from his desk. Sit down. Maya hesitated. I should probably get back to work. I've still got 2 floors left. He raised an eyebrow. You're not going back to cleaning toilets after this. Her hands gripped each other in her lap. It's okay. I didn't do it for anything in return. I know that, he said, but I also know what it cost you. You risked your job, your safety, your future. Maya looked down at the dried blood on her sleeve. She hadn't even noticed it until now. Mr. Carver, my supervisor, he thought I was snooping. Hit me across the face, said I was out of line. Richard's face darkened. You're telling me someone assaulted you on my property? During your shift? She nodded slowly. He didn't speak for a long moment. Then, with a quiet sort of authority, he picked up his desk phone and pressed a button. Julie. Find out where Carver is. Tell security to escort him out immediately. He's done here. And then call HR. I want a full report on his record by noon. He hung up, then met Maya's eyes. You didn't deserve that. No one does. People like me, she started, then stopped herself. He leaned forward. People like you keep this place running. People like me? We just get our names on the door. Maya swallowed. I still don't understand why you're being so kind. I didn't even sign my name on the note. I wasn't even supposed to be in your office, but you were, he said. And you didn't walk past what you saw. You acted. That's more than I can say for most of the people I pay 6 figures. She tried to process what was happening. Her mind drifted to Ava, to their small kitchen with the loose cabinet door, to the eviction notice she had torn off the mailbox just 2 days earlier, to the missed bills, the broken heater, the second-hand clothes. This felt like a dream, one too good to believe. I appreciate what you're saying, she said softly. But I'm not one of you. I'm just a cleaner. Enide. Richard stood, walked over, and handed her a sheet of paper. She looked down. It was a job offer. Position: Junior Audit Analyst. Department: Internal Oversight. Start date: Monday. Training provided. Salary: $4,750. Month. Includes full benefits, tuition support, child care credit. She stared at it, mouth slightly open. Sir, I can't take this. Why not? I don't have a degree. I've never worked in an office. I wouldn't even know where to start. Richard smiled, not the polished, press-ready smile she'd seen in magazines. This one was smaller, more human. Do you think I was born knowing how to sign a billion-dollar deal? Everyone starts somewhere, and I'd rather start someone who knows how to pay attention than someone with a shiny resume and no soul. She blinked rapidly, fighting tears. I don't want a favor, she whispered. It's not a favor, he said. It's justice. That word hit her chest like a drumbeat. Justice, not mercy. Not pity. Justice. You looked at something that no one else saw, Maya. You connected the dots. You noticed. That instinct, that's what auditing is. And it's rare. She ran a hand across her forehead, still dazed. What about my daughter? I'd need time. I can't afford childcare. I have a second job on weekends. My schedule is. We'll work around it, Richard said. I'll make sure you get the flexibility you need. You tell me what hours you can give, and we'll make it work. She looked down at the paper again. Her name was typed at the top in bold. Maya Williams. It looked strange in that font, stronger. More permanent. I don't know what to say. She breathed. Say yes. She looked up, still hesitating. I'm scared, she admitted. He nodded. So am I. But today, you gave me a second chance. Let me return the favor. Maya held the offer in her hand like it was made of glass. After a long silence, she looked at him and whispered, Okay. Richard extended his hand. They shook. It felt like more than a handshake. It felt like crossing a bridge, leaving one life behind, beginning another. I want you to take the rest of the week off, Richard said. Get some rest. Be with your daughter. When you come back Monday, we'll get you set up with your team. Clara Freeman will be your mentor. She's sharp and patient. Maya nodded, still in disbelief. Okay. Thank you. No, Maya, he said. Thank you. As she left the office with the job offer clutched in her hand, she passed by Julie at the reception desk. Julie smiled at her, not a tight, polite smile. A real one. Congratulations, Miss Williams. Maya's lips parted. No one had ever called her Miss Williams before. She stepped into the elevator, heart pounding. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel like she was cleaning someone else's world. She was stepping into her own. The buzz of fluorescent lights was familiar, but everything else felt foreign. Maya Williams stood in the main lobby of Vaughn Tower just before 8 a.m. On Monday morning, dressed in the most professional outfit she could afford. A crisp navy blouse from Goodwill, a pair of slacks that were a little too long, and simple black flats she'd cleaned with a toothbrush the night before. Her hair was pinned neatly, her daughter Ava's tiny barrette holding one side back. It was all she had. This time, she entered through the front doors. Not the service elevator, not the loading dock, the front lobby. The marble under her feet gleamed like it had every morning she'd mopped it. The security guards at the entrance, who'd never looked her way before, smiled and nodded. Morning, Miss Williams, one said, checking her new ID badge. She blinked. Good morning. The badge still felt too stiff on the lanyard around her neck. It read, Maya Williams, Junior Audit Analyst, Internal Oversight Department. The words were surreal. So were the floor-to-ceiling windows, the fresh floral arrangement near the elevators, the smell of espresso and designer perfume in the air. She kept one hand pressed over her small purse, the other gripping the strap of her tote bag that held a notebook, 2 pens, and her second-hand Chromebook. Please let no one ask me anything today, she thought. The elevator dinged. She stepped in with 3 others, 2 men in suits and a woman in red heels and a Bluetooth headset. They didn't acknowledge her, and for once, Maya was grateful. Her hands were already clammy. The ride up to the 18th floor felt like a climb toward something she wasn't sure she deserved. When the doors slid open, the view took her breath. The Internal Oversight Department sat in a glass-walled suite overlooking Lake Michigan. Morning sunlight spilled across open desks, monitors, and whiteboards scribbled with codes and notes. No mop buckets, no supply closets, just silence, the tapping of keyboards, and the hum of focused minds. A petite woman in her early 60s with cropped silver hair stood waiting near the entrance. Miss Williams? She asked. Yes, Maya said, standing straighter. I'm Clara Freeman. The woman smiled. Your supervisor. Welcome aboard. Clara's voice was calm, her handshake firm, and her eyes kind. Maya exhaled the breath she didn't know she'd been holding. "Thank you," Maya whispered. "I'll walk you through the basics today," Clara said, gesturing toward a desk near the back corner. "That'll be your station. We'll set up your computer, get your email running, and begin your system training by this afternoon. I hear you've already demonstrated a strong eye for detail." Maya smiled weakly. "I just noticed something that didn't feel right," Clara nodded. That's where all good investigations begin. The day unfolded slowly, blurry with passwords, logins, and screen orientations. Maya sat through 2 orientation videos, followed Clara through the company's custom software, and took notes furiously, though she barely understood half of what was said. By noon, her brain throbbed. At 12:10, Clara returned to her desk with 2 coffees. Maya blinked. Yes, ma'am." "Clara, please," she smiled. "We don't stand on ceremony around here." Maya took the paper cup. It was still warm. The smell hit her hard memories of cheap gas station coffee in cold parking lots, early shifts, forgotten breakfasts. "You're doing fine," Clara said gently. "Most people are drowning by day 1. You're treading." Maya gave a small laugh. "Feels more like flailing." Clara chuckled. "Flailing still means you're fighting. I've been here 16 years. I've seen auditors with Ivy League degrees who couldn't catch a decimal shift. But you, Richard, said you saw a pattern no one else did." Maya shifted in her chair. "I didn't even mean to look. I just couldn't not. Do or gone. Instinct," Clara nodded. "Never underestimate it. You'll learn the tools, the lingo, the procedures, but what you already have can't be taught." Maya didn't know what to say. She sipped her coffee and looked out the window. The view from her seat was just a sliver of the skyline, but it was hers. At 2 p.m., Richard Vaughn stopped by. He came without fanfare, no assistant, no suit jacket. Just a crisp white shirt and a calm expression. Several heads lifted from monitors. "Maya," he said. "How's day 1 treating you?" Maya stood awkwardly. "It's a lot to learn. I trust Clara's taking good care of you." "She is." Maya nodded. Richard held out a small envelope. "This came through payroll. Your first training stipend. I figured I'd hand deliver it." Maya took the envelope. "You didn't have to do that." "I wanted to," he said. Then his voice softened. "My father was a school custodian. 30 years. No one ever told him thank you. I figured it was about time someone heard it." Maya blinked. "Thank you, Mr. Vaughn," she said quietly. He gave a nod and left as quickly as he came. Clara looked at her once he was gone. "I've worked under 3 CEOs. He's the first who's ever remembered my daughter's name." Maya tucked the envelope gently into her purse. She wouldn't open it until she got home, something about keeping hope sealed just a little longer. At 4:45, Clara walked by and said, "Go home. You survived day 1. That's a win." Maya smiled, powered down her computer, and rode the elevator back down with a feeling she'd never known before. Belonging. Outside, the sun had begun to drop. The gold light wrapped around the building as she stepped toward the bus stop, tote bag slung over her shoulder. At home, Ava waited on the front porch, kicking her heels gently against the steps. "Mama!" she shouted, jumping up. Maya knelt and pulled her daughter close. "You're home late," Ava said. "How was it?" Maya held her tight, whispering into her ear. "It was new," she said. "Hard, but good. Do you have your own desk?" "I do." "Your own chair?" "Tended." Maya smiled. "And my own login password," Ava gasped. "You're fancy now." "Not fancy, baby. Just finally seen." They went inside, and as Maya set her tote down beside the couch, she looked at the wall above the kitchen table, still peeling, still faded, but somehow the whole room looked brighter. The office coffee machine sputtered with a hiss as Maya placed a paper cup beneath the nozzle, the bitter scent curling into the air. It was Wednesday morning, her third day on the job, and her feet already ached from nervous pacing, even though she now sat at a desk instead of scrubbing tiles. The stillness of the 18th floor felt like a different world, a clean one, quiet, controlled, and sharp. Everyone here walked like they had somewhere to be and something to prove. Analysts wore sleek frames and smartwatches. The air buzzed with clicks of mechanical keyboards and the occasional low murmur of conference calls. Maya moved carefully through it all, watching, listening, absorbing. She didn't speak unless spoken to. She took notes in a spiral-bound notebook with purple flowers on the cover, the same one she used to track Ava's homework and grocery coupons. Every abbreviation, every software term, every compliance procedure went into those pages like a secret language she was determined to learn. Clara Freeman, as promised, was patient, kind, even. But Maya sensed the quiet curiosity from others. The weight of glances that followed her through the open floor plan. They weren't cruel. They were cautious, like they couldn't quite figure her out. At first, she thought she was imagining it. But then came the whispers. I heard she used to clean floors on the 24th. No degree. Not even a 2-year certificate. Vaughn gave her a job, 'cause she caught a typo or something. She tried to ignore them. But by Thursday afternoon, the nickname started. The Janitor Miracle. Maya overheard it in the break room. One woman with manicured nails and a voice like ice had said it with a smirk while pouring almond milk into her coffee. Well, let's hope the Janitor Miracle doesn't try to review my expense reports. The others laughed, quiet, careful, but loud enough. Maya didn't say a word. She smiled politely. She walked out. She kept her head high, but when she got to the restroom, she locked herself in a stall, sat down, and just breathed. Not cried, not yet, just breathed. She thought of Ava, of that little drawing still hanging on their refrigerator. A stick figure mom standing under a rainbow, labeled, "My Hero." Don't let them take that from you, she told herself. The next morning, Clara placed a thick binder on Maya's desk. Your first challenge, she said, almost cheerfully. Maya blinked. What is it? A cross-quarter expense review for our senior analyst, Roger Maddox. He wants your input. Maya hesitated. Me? Clara nodded. He insisted. That should have felt like a compliment. But as Maya glanced across the room at Roger, a tall, lean man with slicked hair and the posture of a fencer, she saw the flicker in his eyes as he looked her way. Challenge, not opportunity. She spent the weekend buried in the binder. After Ava went to sleep, she sat at the kitchen table, flipping through spreadsheets and receipts. It was a maze of line items and expense reports, vendor invoices and travel reimbursements. And she saw it. A lunch in Miami billed for 2 when the trip was supposedly solo. A set of hotel charges posted under 2 different department codes. A client meeting that didn't match any sales calendar. She highlighted every inconsistency, double-checked the entries, and cross-referenced dates with internal memos she found archived in the audit system. By Monday morning, she had 7 discrepancies, 4 of them serious. She printed her findings, stapled them neatly, and placed them in front of Roger's desk. He looked up from his monitor, eyebrows lifting. That was quick. I stayed up late, Maya said, voice steady. He leaned back in his chair, flipping through her notes. Silence. Then a chuckle. Low, dry, impressive. He said, though his tone made it sound like a dare. You sure about all this? Positive, she said. You can cross-check the internal reports. Pages 6 through 9. He didn't thank her, but that afternoon, HR called him in. By 3:30 p.m., Roger Maddox was escorted out of the building by security. No goodbyes, no explanations, just silence and stares. At 4:15, Clara appeared beside Maya's desk. I read your review, she said simply. You didn't just catch a mistake. You caught a pattern. That's not something you can teach. Maya looked up at her, blinking. Is he gone? Clara said. Fraudulent reimbursements, months of them. Maya exhaled. Clara touched her shoulder gently. That was brave, Maya. That night, she didn't ride the bus home. Richard Vaughn called and asked if he could give her a lift himself. When she slid into the passenger seat of his sleek black Lincoln, he didn't say anything for a minute. just drove through the glowing city lights, one hand on the wheel, the other resting near the gear shift. Finally, he glanced at her. I heard about Maddox. I just did what I was taught, Maya said quietly. Look closer. He smiled. No. You did what others wouldn't. You spoke up. Again, she looked out the window, the skyline rising around them. I thought it would be easier, she said, after what happened with Monroe. But it still feels like I'm being watched. You are, he said. But not for the reasons you think. She turned to him. People like me, he said. We build things, but we forget to look. You reminded us to look. Maya said nothing. When he dropped her off in front of her apartment, Ava was waiting on the porch, waving like she always did. As Maya walked up the steps, Richard called after her. Maya, she turned. You're not the janitor, Miracle, he said. She blinked. You're the miracle, he said. Period. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. Inside, she kissed Ava on the forehead, placed her notebook on the table, and wrote one word across the top of a fresh page. Belonging. The first time Maya noticed the nameplate was on a Thursday. She had just dropped off the second quarter discrepancy report at Clara's office and was walking back through the corridor lined with glass-walled offices. Each door bore a polished silver plaque engraved names gleaming in clean serif type. It was something Maya used to walk past with mop and bucket, not a folder and a badge. But today, one plaque stood out not for its shine, but for its damage. Amanda L. Bryant, Director of Budget Strategy. The top corner of the metal plate was bent slightly upward, like someone had tried to pry it off and failed. The office door was open a crack. Lights inside off. Maya slowed, staring at the damaged plaque. That kind of thing didn't just happen in Vaughn Tower. Everything here was smooth, perfect, presentable. A scuffed nameplate was like a torn flag on a courthouse. She made a mental note. Just curiosity. Nothing more. By noon, she had forgotten all about it until she walked into the break room and saw Amanda Bryant standing alone at the counter, stirring a cup of tea slowly. Like the motion itself kept her from unraveling. Amanda was tall, always well-dressed, with a sharp jawline and watchful eyes. Everyone knew she'd worked under Richard Vaughn since the company's second year. If Monroe had been Richard's right hand, Amanda had been his compass. Maya, Amanda said without looking. Good afternoon, ma'am. Maya replied. Stiffly respectful. Amanda turned, her face tired. You don't have to ma'am me. I read your expense report review. Maya's fingers tightened slightly on her coffee cup. You were thorough, Amanda continued. Too thorough for a beginner. I had help, Maya said, her voice even. Clara's been. Amanda raised a hand. No, Maya, don't minimize it. You saw what others didn't. She leaned against the counter. You remind me of someone I used to be. That caught Maya off guard. Ma'am? Amanda didn't smile. I wasn't born into this world either. My first job was answering phones at a scrapyard in Joliet. Second job was waiting tables. I know what it's like to watch everyone else get ahead while you're still proving you belong. Maya stayed silent, unsure if this was praise or a warning. Amanda lowered her voice. There are people here who won't forgive you for being right, especially when it cost them a friend like Roger Maddox. Maya flinched at the name. I didn't mean to humiliate anyone, she said. You followed the truth, Amanda cut in. And some people would rather protect a lie than admit who benefited from it. The words hung in the air. Then Amanda took her tea and walked out, heels clicking on tile. That afternoon, Maya passed by Amanda's office again. The nameplate had been polished. The dent? Gone. But Maya now saw something else. An envelope had been slid under Amanda's door, unmarked. Maya bent slightly, squinting. No label, no handwriting. Just a thick white envelope sitting like a secret. She straightened, walked on, but something lodged in her gut. A nudge, a whisper, a warning. That night, after Ava went to bed and the apartment fell quiet, Maya opened her notebook again. She'd been tracking every oddity, every inconsistency, not just in numbers, but in people. In behavior, she added a new heading, Office Anomalies. Amanda's nameplate, damaged. Unmarked envelope, 3:12 p.m., Thursday. Break room conversation. Warning? Underneath it, she drew a question mark. Was it paranoia? Or intuition? A week passed. Amanda didn't show up for 2 days. Then, late Tuesday morning, HR sent a memo. Effective immediately, Amanda L. Bryant will be stepping down from her role as Director of Budget Strategy for personal reasons. We thank her for 12 years of dedicated service. No farewell email, no goodbyes, just silence. By Wednesday, her office had been cleared. Maya asked Clara, "Do you know what happened?" Clara shook her head. "Only what you know." She resigned, but she didn't say goodbye. Clara's expression didn't change. Sometimes in this building, people leave before they're told to leave. And sometimes, they're told quietly. Maya wanted to ask more, but she didn't, until Friday, when she received an email from amanda.bryant@personalmail.net. Subject: Be careful. Body: Some things are meant to stay buried. But if you keep digging, don't do it alone. Maya stared at the screen for a full minute before breathing. There was no signature. No explanation. Just a warning. That night, she told Ava she might have to work some extra hours in the coming weeks. More meetings? Ava asked. Maya kissed her forehead. Maybe, she said. But deep down, she knew. It wasn't about meetings. It was about what Monroe had started, and what might still be buried in the ledgers, the approvals. The partnerships Richard never questioned. The more Maya learned, the more she realized the company wasn't just a machine, it was a maze, and somewhere in the walls, something still moved. Friday bled into the weekend like spilled ink. But Maya didn't rest. On Saturday morning, as Ava colored at the kitchen table, Maya sat with her work laptop propped up beside her bowl of cereal, skimming over internal memos from the last fiscal year. The emails were dry, bloated with business jargon, but the deeper she read, the more she saw a pattern emerge. Vague vendor references, department transfers that didn't match timelines, tiny payment requests just under approval thresholds. Each on its own was nothing. Together, they formed a constellation of careful deception. It felt familiar, eerily so. Like Monroe's tactics, except these were dated after his exit. By Monday morning, Maya had highlighted 27 such entries. She printed them, organized them by department, and took them straight to Clara. Clara frowned as she flipped through the pages. None of these were flagged by the system. "I know," Maya said. "That's why I looked twice. Someone's hiding small discrepancies inside approved chains." Clara leaned back, tapping a pen to her lips. "This is procurement and project management mostly." "That narrows it down. Should we report it to Richard?" Clara hesitated. "No," she said quietly. "Not yet. If we go to him too early, and it turns out to be a false trail, we'll lose his trust. You've earned it once. Don't risk it without more." Maya nodded. "What should we do?" "We keep looking," Clara said. "But off the books." That phrase felt heavy, like stepping off the map into forest. "I'll pull the vendor contracts and staff logs," Clara continued. "You focus on payment histories and any expense reports tied to new construction or partnerships." They worked in silence for the rest of the morning. By Wednesday, they'd uncovered 3 shell vendors companies that didn't exist before 2023, but had received repeated payments totaling hundreds of thousands. One of them, Stoneworth Logistics, had been paid $87,500 in the last 6 months for consulting. "Consulting what?" Clara murmured. "They don't even have a website." Maya squinted at the company address. "It's a storage facility in Elk Grove. Want to take a drive?" Maya blinked. "Now?" Clara smiled slightly. "Don't worry. I brought flats." They left the tower in Clara's Subaru, the air thick with city dust and suspicion. The ride to Elk Grove took 40 minutes, and Maya couldn't stop thinking about Amanda Bryant. Some things are meant to stay buried. The storage facility was gray, unremarkable, surrounded by chain-link fence. Clara parked near Unit 46, the address listed on the last invoice from Stoneworth. "Stay in the car," she told Maya. Clara walked to the office, flashed her company badge, and smiled sweetly at the young man behind the counter. A few moments later, she returned with a printed log in hand. Unit 46 is leased under a private name, not a company. Maya leaned in. Who? Clara showed her the line. Lassie, Franklin Rogers. The same name from the Monroe scandal. Maya felt her throat tighten. But Monroe's gone. Someone kept the pipeline alive, Clara said, voice grim. Probably a ghost account. But whoever it is, they're in the system. That night, Maya couldn't sleep. She sat in bed beside Ava's curled form, watching shadows move across the wall, feeling that old, suffocating pressure from her cleaning days, the feeling of being in rooms she was never meant to see. The next morning, she took a risk. She went to Julie, the receptionist, and asked quietly if she could pull a favor. I need to see the access logs for the 18th floor, Maya whispered. Last Wednesday, around 3 p.m. I think someone used Amanda Bryant's keycard after she was already gone. Julie blinked. Why would someone do that? Maya didn't answer. Julie stared at her for a moment, then nodded slowly. Give me an hour. At 10:42 a.m. Maya received an envelope in her inbox with no name. Just one word on the label. Records. Inside were 2 sheets. One was the log showing Amanda's keycard used at 3:12 p.m., 3 days after her resignation was filed. The second sheet showed a second access attempt at 5:47 p.m. the same day from a security override badge, level 9 clearance. Only 2 people in the company had that. Richard Vaughn and CFO Deborah Sandhurst. Maya stared at the page, her fingers trembling. Clara stepped behind her, glancing over her shoulder. Level 9? She asked softly. Maya nodded. Clara leaned closer. We just opened a door we might not be able to close. Maya exhaled slowly. I think we already walked through it. That evening, as she left the building, Maya passed by the main display in the lobby, 12 framed photographs of the executive board. She paused, eyes landing on Deborah Sandhurst, perfect hair, pearl earrings, a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Maya felt a chill run through her. The further she followed the numbers, the more it looked like the rot hadn't left with Monroe. It had just worn a new face. By the time Maya arrived at work the next morning, she felt the shift in the air. It wasn't loud or obvious, but something had changed. Conversations were shorter, eyes lingered longer. Even Julie at the front desk gave a tight smile that didn't reach her usual warmth. Clara was already at Maya's desk when she arrived, holding a folder. They moved the procurement data behind firewall access, she said. I tried to pull 3 vendor reports this morning, denied. Maya's stomach dropped. They know. Clara nodded grimly. Not everything, but someone's tightening the net, and that only happens when someone feels a draft. Just then, a voice echoed from across the floor. Maya Williams? Maya turned. Standing at the edge of the open office was Deborah Sandhurst, the CFO, impeccably dressed in a dark green suit, her pearls gleaming at her neck. Deborah had the kind of presence that made elevators fall silent when she entered. Rumor said she once ran 3 departments simultaneously and hadn't taken a sick day in 10 years. I'd like a word, Deborah said, her voice calm, crisp. Clara tensed. You don't have to go anywhere without someone from HR. It's okay, Maya said, even though her pulse was thudding like a bass drum. She followed Deborah down the hallway, her own footsteps feeling miles behind the CFO's deliberate stride. They entered a private conference room, floor-to-ceiling glass, thick blinds, no surveillance cameras in the corners. Deborah closed the door quietly. Please, she gestured. Have a seat. Maya sat. Deborah didn't. Instead, she walked slowly around the table, like a teacher circling a student who might have cheated on a test. I've been hearing interesting things, Deborah began. Rumors about unauthorized record requests, late-night database searches, whispered meetings in storage rooms. I haven't done anything outside of my responsibilities, Maya said, keeping her tone steady. Responsibility is a broad term, Deborah said, especially in this company. She leaned on the table. You've caused quite a stir, Miss Williams. Some people think you're ambitious. Others think you're naive. Maya met her gaze. What do you think? Deborah gave the smallest smile. I think you're someone who should be careful. There was no threat in her tone, but it was still a threat. I'm just following the data, Maya said. Deborah's smile didn't change. So did Edward Snowden. Maya's hands curled in her lap. I admire curiosity, Deborah continued. Truly. But curiosity can become obsession. And obsession, if left unchecked, becomes delusion. She walked to the window, pulling back a sliver of the blind to let in morning light. This company runs on precision, order, trust. What you're doing intentionally or not disrupts that balance. I'm not here to disrupt anything, Maya replied. I'm just trying to make sure no one else gets hurt. Deborah turned. No one is hurt. Not anymore. That silence hung heavy. Then Deborah took something from her folder and slid it across the table. Maya looked down. It was her cleaning record. Employment history. Warnings from her first supervisor. Mr. Carver. The one who struck her. A note. Employee once found in unauthorized executive hallway. Maya looked up. Deborah's eyes were like glass. You've come far. But far enough? The message was clear. Back down, or be buried. Maya stood slowly. Are you done? For now. Maya reached the door. But before she left, she turned. You know what the problem with silence is? She asked, her voice trembling, not with fear but with fire. It makes people think they're safe. Until someone finally speaks. Then she walked out, each step sharper than the one before. Clara was waiting outside, arms crossed. Well? She knows. Maya whispered. Clara nodded. Then we stay ahead. That night, Maya pulled out the old folder her father had left behind, the one she had hidden after his death. Newspaper clippings, legal letters, a photograph of the man who bankrupted him, Russell Burke. In the background of that photo, standing just behind Burke at a shareholders' dinner in 2002, was a young woman in pearls, Deborah Sandhurst. Maya's blood ran cold. It wasn't just about the money. It was personal. She took out her notebook and scribbled across a fresh page. Russell Burke. 2002. Deborah S. Advisor? Motive? Cleanup? Below it, she drew a line like a fuse. And next to it, 2 words. Not done. On Sunday morning, Maya stood in front of her father's old filing cabinet, the one she had refused to sell, even when rent was past due. It had lived in their apartment's storage closet for years, collecting dust, unopened since the week he died. But now, it called to her. She hadn't expected to go digging again. It was a door she promised herself she wouldn't reopen, a weight she didn't want Ava to carry. But Deborah Sandhurst's name beside Russell Burke's face had blown that door off its hinges. Her fingers trembled as she turned the key. The top drawer screeched open. Inside, legal memos. Letters addressed to J. Williams, from lawyers who never replied. A torn photo of her father sitting on their porch, dated 1998 absent. And an envelope, thick, yellowed. It was addressed to be opened if they come for you. Maya swallowed. Inside were 2 things. A flash drive, and a single note in her father's handwriting. Burke was just the face. Follow the papers. They buried it deep. But not all of them know it's still breathing. Protect yourself. The next morning, Maya arrived at work early before Clara, before even the janitorial crew. She plugged the flash drive into her laptop in the privacy of her cubicle. Heart pounding. There were 3 files. One was an old audio recording from 2004. The other 2 were PDFs, scanned ledgers. She clicked play. A man's voice, deep and rattled with age. This is Joseph Williams. If you're hearing this, I'm either in jail or worse. I found something I wasn't supposed to. My mistake was thinking the lies ended with Burke, but Vaughn Industries hell, maybe even higher. This thing runs deeper. Money shifting through fake vendors, bribes hidden in development initiatives, names you wouldn't believe, and I think they're using black staff janitors, clerks as a cover. People no one watches. People like me. Maya's throat tightened. If my daughter ever hears this, Maya, I'm sorry I didn't get out. But if you're where I think you are, if you're inside the tower, don't stop looking. Not for me, but for the ones after you. The recording ended. She sat frozen, not just her father's voice but confirmation. Her suspicions weren't paranoia. They were legacy. That afternoon, Clara cornered her during break. HR wants to meet with you. Maya blinked. Why? They didn't say. But it's not routine. Maya, I think you're being watched more closely now. Maya nodded. I know. Crash duration. Before the meeting, she printed the 2 ledgers from the flash drive. She didn't bring them in. She didn't show her hand. But she needed to feel their weight in her purse, proof she wasn't crazy. Inside HR, the mood was off. Too warm, too kind. Just a check-in, said the woman with the fake smile. We've noticed some unusual access activity on your account. Maya kept her tone level. I'm auditing vendors. That's my job. Of course, the woman said. But perhaps it's best to narrow your scope. Stick to assigned departments. We don't want confusion. Muzzle, Maya thought. I understand, she said aloud. May I ask who raised the concern? The smile never wavered. We're not at liberty to say. Back at her desk, she found a sticky note from Clara. CFO canceled all audit trace logs from the past 2 quarters. Something's being erased. Maya stared at the message. Deborah wasn't just watching. She was cleaning. That night, Maya reached out to an old friend, Marcus Tate, a former IT technician who used to eat lunch in the boiler room with her during her janitor days. He owed her a favor. She met him at a diner outside the city, far from the corporate walls. Maya? He blinked. Didn't expect to see you in a blazer. She smiled faintly. Didn't expect to be wearing one. They caught up over pancakes and watery coffee. Then she got to the point. I need to recover deleted internal logs, audit traces, secure files. He frowned. You realize that's... I know, she said. But if I don't, someone else is going to bury everything my father died for. Marcus hesitated. Then sighed. You still drink your coffee black? Always. Then I'm in. They shook hands under the table. A pact, silent but unbreakable. The next day, Maya returned to the office with a plan. Step 1, stall HR. Step 2, let Marcus inside the system. Step 3, get the final link between Deborah, Burke, and the post-Monroe shell companies. Because if she was going down, she was going down swinging. Marcus Tate arrived at Vaughn Tower under the name Frederick Marsh, a freelance compliance tech hired to perform a silent systems test. His fake badge scanned without issue thanks to a temporary employee ID. Maya had quietly requested through a back-end request form 2 days prior. Nobody questioned it. Not when Maya included the words, per Clara Freeman, urgent audit QA. He wore a gray hoodie under a blazer, carried a battered laptop, and kept his head down. It was 7:42 a.m. The real workday hadn't started yet. Maya met him at the freight elevator. Nice place, he muttered, glancing around. Smells like paranoia. She gave a nervous smile. You have 30 minutes. The server room's on 12. I'll stall Clara if she shows early. Marcus cracked his knuckles. Once a janitor, always a ninja. She handed him a small USB. This has the logs my father saved. If we can cross-reference these with the deleted vendor paths. I know. He interrupted. I get it. Just watch the hallway. As he disappeared down the metal corridor, Maya felt her hands tremble. Not from fear. From focus. Each minute ticked like thunder. Meanwhile, in her cubicle upstairs, she left her monitor on with a blank expense report open as a decoy. She even placed her blazer over the back of the chair, so it looked like she'd just stepped away. By 8:06, she received the first message. Marcus. Got partial logs. Deborah's ID accessed backdoor audit tools. Hidden vendor code. RAV07. Does that mean anything? Maya stared. Rav. Richard. A. Vaughn? Maya. Check cross-department payouts. Any money trail beyond procurement? The reply came fast. Marcus. Yes. RAV07 links to Shell payments for diversity recruitment initiatives. But money was funneled through dead LLCs. One of them matches your dad's note. Harbor Ridge Partners. Maya's heart dropped. That name was circled twice in her father's old folder. Maya, pull everything. Backdate if you can. Then wipe your digital trace. Marcus, already doing it. But Maya, this is deep. If someone finds out, this won't just be a firing offense. You could disappear. She didn't respond, because she already knew. At 8:13, Clara walked in. Maya? She called from across the floor. Maya stepped quickly into view. Morning. I was just making coffee. Clara smiled. Big day. You're scheduled to meet with legal at 11. They want your insight on post-Maddox processes. A test, or a trap. Sure, Maya replied smoothly. I'll be ready. Her phone buzzed. Marcus. Downloaded 87% of the files. Need 5 more minutes. You good? Maya. Yes. I'll stall. But get out clean. Just then, a new figure stepped onto the floor. Deborah Sandhurst. Hair perfect, pearls glowing. She walked straight to Clara's office, speaking low. Clara followed. The door closed. Maya's blood turned cold. She texted one word to Marcus. Now. 2 minutes later, her phone lit up. Marcus. Done. Files are on drive. No footprints left. Elevator now. Maya rose from her desk slowly. Walked to the hallway, pretending to head toward the vending machine. As the freight doors dinged open, Marcus slid out with his laptop bag slung casually. He didn't speak. Just passed her. Slipped something into her palm, the USB drive, and kept walking. She felt the weight of it. Not in grams, in consequences. At 10:55 a.m., she entered the legal meeting. 3 people were present, 2 lawyers, and 1 corporate compliance officer. They offered smiles, poured water, thanked her for coming. Then the questions started. Have you been accessing departments beyond your assignment? Do you recognize this log entry? Were you in communication with any former employees recently, perhaps? Someone like Amanda Bryant? Maya answered carefully, calmly. She did not lie, but she didn't give them what they wanted, either. Not yet. Finally, the senior counsel leaned in. We'd like to remind you, Miss Williams, that any unauthorized access of company systems, no matter how well-intentioned, is grounds for termination. Maya looked straight at her. And, if someone authorized fraud, is that grounds for prison? The room froze. She stood. Thank you for your time. Outside, Clara was waiting. Maya didn't say a word. She simply handed her the USB. Clara took it, glanced at the label. Harbor Ridge, RAV7 chain. Clara's mouth tightened. Is this everything? Maya nodded. No more speculation. This is proof. Clara exhaled. Then, we go to Richard. No. Maya said. Not yet. Clara blinked. Why not? Because if he doesn't already know, he might be the last thread holding this web together. That night, Maya tucked Ava into bed, then sat at the kitchen table, laptop open, documents spread. The more she read, the more clear it became. Her father wasn't destroyed by bad luck. He was silenced by design. And now, 20 years later, his daughter had the receipts. But what she didn't yet have was a plan. Thursday morning began like any other, but the temperature in the tower had changed. Maya could feel it the second she stepped off the elevator. A strange stillness lingered in the air. Conversations were clipped. Eyes flicked toward her and then away just as quickly. No one smiled. No one greeted her. Even the cleaning staff, her old comrades, gave her quick nods and hurried along. She was no longer invisible. She was watched. Clara met her in the corridor by the coffee machine. He knows, she whispered, handing Maya a file folder under the guise of small talk. I sent the USB to Richard's secure email at 3 a.m. He read it at 4:17. Logged in from his private IP. Maya's pulse kicked. What did he say? Nothing, Clara replied. But he wants to see you. Maya's stomach sank. When? Now. They rode the elevator in silence to the 26th floor, where only a few people were ever invited. Maya had never been there. even during her janitorial years. This wasn't just upper management. This was Vaughn's inner sanctum. The doors slid open with a soft chime. It was quiet, carpeted in deep navy blue, art on the walls, a heavy scent of cedar and faint pipe tobacco in the air. His office was massive, lined with glass and brushed steel, but warm in a way that felt surprising. There was a wall of books, family photographs, a globe beside a weathered leather chair, and there, standing by the window in a charcoal suit, staring out over the Chicago skyline, was Richard Vaughn. He didn't turn right away, just spoke. "Do you like tea, Miss Williams?" Maya blinked. Yes, sir." He nodded once, then gestured to the small table near the fireplace. A silver tray sat between two chairs, a porcelain teapot, 2 cups. She sat, cautiously. He poured the tea himself. No assistant, no show, just the billionaire and the janitor turned auditor. "I read everything," he said finally, sitting across from her. "The USB, the documents, your father's audio file." Maya gripped the cup tightly. "I'm not here to make demands," she said. "But you needed to know." "I did," he replied, without flinching. "And I should have known sooner." She looked up sharply. He met her eyes. "I remember Joseph," he continued. "He was meticulous, humble. He used to greet every single person in the lobby by name, even me. I didn't know what happened after Burke's exit. I was told your father resigned. Quietly, peacefully. He didn't," Maya said, her voice low. "He was humiliated, blacklisted, and we nearly lost everything." Vaughn looked down, his jaw tight. "That's on me." Silence settled. Finally, Maya placed a folded sheet of paper on the table. A list of the shell companies still active. They're bleeding funds from your own compliance budget. He didn't touch it. "I believe you," he said. "But I also believe Deborah Sandhurst is a threat," he said calmly, "and that she's been orchestrating this for longer than I realized." Maya exhaled slowly. "So what now?" He leaned forward, fingers laced. "You and Clara will quietly build a full report. One that connects every name, every invoice. We'll take it to the board, not to legal. Not yet. I want the directors to see it before anyone tries to bury it again." Maya hesitated. "And Deborah?" He smiled faintly. "She'll hang herself. She just needs the right rope." Then he grew serious. "But Maya," he said, "this will get darker. There are people in this company, in this building, who will protect her because she made them rich. Are you ready to be the reason some of them fall?" She looked him in the eye. "My father died chasing the truth. I'm not letting his story end halfway." He nodded once. "Then let's finish it." As Maya stood to leave, he added, "And Maya?" She turned. "I was wrong before. You weren't hired because of a miracle. You were hired because you didn't look away." As she walked out, the cup of tea still warm in her hand. That evening, back at home, Ava tugged on her sleeve. "Mommy, what are you thinking about?" Maya smiled faintly. "About a rope," she whispered. "And the truth." The following week unfolded like a chessboard, every move deliberate, every glance, every email calculated. Maya and Clara worked late in a locked records room on the 19th floor, cross-referencing every payment, approval chain, and signed contract tied to the shell companies. The evidence was undeniable. Harbor Ridge Partners, RAV-07, Clearwater Advisory, Nova Sentry. 4 entities, each with overlapping invoice numbers, each funneling thousands, sometimes millions, out of compliance and community outreach budgets. "Here," Clara said, pointing to a line item. "This was supposed to fund a hiring program for inner-city youth last year. They even ran a fake press release. But the actual money? Sent to a Delaware P.O. box." Maya shook her head. "The worst part? I remember seeing that flyer in the break room. We all thought we were doing something good." Clara's mouth tightened. "That's the trick. Deborah didn't just hide theft. She painted it in charity. It took them 6 days to complete the report. 58 pages, 6 appendices, dozens of embedded source links, signed statements. Timestamps. They gave it to Richard in person. He flipped through the first 5 pages and closed the binder gently. "This is enough to gut the company," he said, his voice low. "And to save it." But Maya had one more request. "I want to speak to her," she said. "Deborah?" Clara asked. "Yes." Richard hesitated. "Why?" Maya's eyes didn't waver. "Because sometimes the only way to end a story is to let the villain name themselves." 2 days later, Maya stepped into the boardroom on the 24th floor, one of the most secured spaces in the building. A long walnut table stretched between floor-to-ceiling windows. Leather chairs lined both sides, and a wall of silent screens blinked, waiting for a presentation that wouldn't happen today. Deborah Sandhurst sat at the head of the table. Pearl earrings, forest green blazer, calm as still water. She didn't rise. "You asked to speak to me?" she said without looking up. Maya sat across from her. No notes, no files, just the weight of everything she'd uncovered. "I wanted to give you the chance to explain," Maya said. "Before everything goes public." Deborah chuckled softly. "Public?" Maya nodded. "The board is meeting tomorrow. Richard's calling for a full audit." "Richard," Deborah muttered. "The man who once ignored millions in bonuses being misappropriated under his nose?" Maya kept her voice level. "He's correcting his mistake." Deborah finally looked up, her gaze razor sharp. "Do you really think exposing me is going to change this place? This system? I didn't build the rot. I just learned how to survive in it. That's the difference between us." Maya replied. "You accepted the rot. I didn't. You're a maid who got lucky." "No," Maya said. "I'm a maid who paid attention. For the first time." Deborah's smile faltered. "I watched you for months," she said, quieter now. "You were too clean. Too polite. I thought maybe you were someone else's pawn." I'm nobody's pawn," Maya replied. "But you were my warning." Deborah stood, walked to the window. "I was 28 when I first realized no one would ever hand me power. So I took it. Every shell company I created, every move I did, it to build something for people like me." Maya stood too. "People like us don't build legacies on stolen bones." Deborah turned slowly. "You're not ready for what happens next." "I am," Maya said. "And if you were the woman you pretend to be, you'd walk into that boardroom tomorrow and own it." Deborah said nothing. Maya turned to leave. But before she opened the door, she added, "And, for what it's worth, my father remembered you. Said you used to say all the right things, then one day you stopped showing up. Turns out, you didn't disappear, you just moved upstairs and closed the curtains." Behind her, the silence was heavy. Then a whisper. "I'm not the only one behind the curtain, Maya." Maya paused. "Then, I guess I'll keep pulling it back." And she walked out. The boardroom the next morning was a theater of unease. Maya stood behind Richard Vaughn, who now sat at the head of the long table, flanked by Clara and 2 members of the internal audit team. At the other end of the table, Deborah Sandhurst sat composed, her expression unreadable. Around them were 12 directors, shareholders, legal advisors, senior partners, men and women whose net worths could rival small nations, yet who now sat as still as schoolchildren waiting for the bell. Richard began calmly. "I've asked you all here today because our company is at a crossroads." He placed a hand on the thick binder in front of him, Maya and Clara's report. "What you're about to hear may make some of you uncomfortable. It will challenge how we've operated, but ignoring it would be the true risk." He turned to Maya. "Miss Williams." Maya stood, her palms cold. "My name is Maya Williams. Some of you may recognize me from the janitorial department. Others may know me through the audit division. I've worked in this building for over 8 years. I've cleaned your floors and balanced your budgets." There was a slight shuffle of discomfort in the room. "I come to you not with accusation but with evidence." She clicked the remote in her hand. The screen behind her lit up. Vendor logs, financial trails, shell companies, and finally, the names. Harbor Ridge, RAV-07, Stoneworth Logistics. Every transaction tracked, every signature matched. She told the story clearly, but with quiet conviction. She showed them the internal theft, the misused diversity funds, the bribes disguised as consulting, and she let her father's words, his voice from the recording, echo through the speakers for the final 3 minutes of her presentation. They used our invisibility against us. But what they didn't count on was us watching back. When it ended, no one moved, until Richard broke the silence. We will now open the floor to discussion. And then the fire began. This is hearsay, one board member barked. Deborah's been with us 20 years, another said. We don't throw away loyalty overnight. Where's the proof she signed these? She did sign them, Clara said sharply, standing. Every payment above $100,000 required dual authorization. We have timestamps, her initials, her login ID, IQ, Maya added, and vendor contacts that trace back to her niece's name, her old address, her personal holding account. Deborah remained calm. She didn't speak. She didn't protest. She waited, until finally, when all arguments had spun out, she stood. I won't deny what's on those pages, she said. I won't insult your intelligence. I did what I did. And yes, I used the gaps in the system to benefit myself and others. There was a murmur. But don't forget, she added, her eyes sweeping the room. Many of you benefited too. Bonuses, fast-tracked budgets, smoothed approvals. I didn't act alone. She turned to Richard. So if you want a clean house, don't stop with me. And a money's. Then she sat again, folded her hands, and stared at no one. The room was silent once more. Richard spoke slowly. We are not here to cast stones blindly. We are here to make a choice. He looked around the table. All those in favor of Deborah Sandhurst's immediate suspension pending full investigation? Hands went up. 1, 2, 4, 8, 11. Richard paused, then raised his own. 12. Deborah didn't flinch. She rose, nodded once, and walked toward the door. Before she exited, she turned back to Maya. There will be others, she said. They'll come smiling. And then she was gone. The board disbanded slowly. Some left without speaking. Others offered quiet nods toward Maya and Clara. One man murmured, "Took guts," before vanishing down the hallway. Back in Richard's office, Maya stood by the window. You did it, Clara said behind her. No, Maya said. We started it. Richard entered a moment later. You saved this company. I didn't do it for the company, Maya said. He smiled faintly. I know. Then he handed her a folder. What's this? Your promotion. She blinked. Director of Internal Oversight. Full benefits. Your own team. Maya opened the folder slowly, reading the title, her name typed neatly on the top line. Then she looked up. Thank you. But I have one condition. Name it. I want a mentorship program named after my father, she said. For overlooked workers, janitors, cafeteria staff, night security. Anyone who dreams of something more. Richard extended his hand. Done. They shook, and Maya finally let herself breathe. But as she glanced at the city beyond the glass, she whispered to herself. She said there would be others. Let them come. 2 days after Deborah Sandhurst was escorted from the building, Maya began to feel a different kind of pressure, not overt, not loud, but present. Like a draft beneath a locked door. First came the elevator. She stepped in, hit the button for the 19th floor, and the panel flickered. For a moment, all buttons went dark. Then it moved slowly, stopping twice without opening on the wrong floors. The next day, her company keycard was mysteriously deactivated. She waited at the turnstile for 6 full minutes, until Clara came down and manually let her in. Glitch? Clara asked, concerned. Or a warning? Maya murmured. That night, as Maya left the building, she heard footsteps echo in the underground garage. It was late. She was alone, or so she thought. She turned. Hello? No answer. Just silence. She kept walking, clutching her keys like claws between her fingers, every shadow suddenly too thick. Her car was in row D. She saw it silver, clean, lights catching the dim garage glow. She reached for the door. You made quite the enemy, came a voice behind her. She spun. A man stood in the shadows. Late 50 seconds. Tan trench coat. Worn face. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said, raising his hands. "But I need to talk to you. Fast." "Who are you?" Maya demanded. "Used to work in compliance," he said. "Got pushed out when I started asking too many questions." She didn't lower her guard. "Name, Jonathan Creel." It sounded vaguely familiar. "I was part of the whistleblower group in 2012, he said. "We tried to expose Burke before the merger, but they made us sign NDAs, threatened our pensions, families." Maya took a step back. "Why come to me?" "Because you made noise. Real noise. And now people are listening." He reached into his coat slowly and handed her a USB. "This has everything we didn't have the courage to release. Payroll fraud. Executive kickbacks. Real estate laundering. Some of the names on your report? Just the tip." Maya stared at the tiny drive. "Why now?" "Because Sandhurst wasn't the queen. She was a knight." He pointed upward toward the building. "Someone above her let it all happen. Might still be letting it happen." Maya's breath caught. "You have allies, Miss Williams," Jonathan said. "But you also have enemies with expensive lawyers and no conscience." She looked at the USB in her palm. "I don't know if I can keep pulling this thread without it snapping." Jonathan's eyes hardened. "Then don't pull. Cut." And with that, he turned and vanished into the garage shadows. Maya drove home that night with her daughter's car seat in the back and a storm building in her chest. At home, Ava was asleep. The apartment was still. Maya plugged the drive into her personal laptop. New folders opened. Old names reappeared. Familiar lies, dressed in new disguises. And one folder stood out. Vaughn, transfers, 2009 negative 2014. She clicked. Her mouth went dry. It wasn't just Deborah. Payments linked directly to Vaughn's brother, Robert Vaughn, who served on the board until 2015. Accounts in Zurich. Construction projects that never broke ground. And attached to one document a signature. Richards. But dated 13 years ago. She sat back in her chair. The truth boiling just beneath her skin. What if he knew all along? What if this was all just a cleanup operation with her holding the broom? Her phone buzzed. A text from Clara. "You okay?" "Heard from Marcus. He says your access logs are being audited again. Someone's phishing." Maya didn't reply, because for the first time since this began, she wasn't sure who she could trust. She glanced toward her sleeping daughter, and then toward the drive still glowing in the USB port. The queen had fallen, but the king? He might still be playing the game. Monday morning. The sun rose, but Vaughn Tower felt colder. Maya entered the building with her head high. Her badge finally reactivated, but her thoughts a whirlwind of doubt. She passed familiar faces, each one a question mark. Who had known? Who had stayed silent? Who was watching her now? Her elevator ride to the 19th floor was smooth this time. Too smooth. Not a flicker or delay. Waiting at her desk was a sealed envelope. No return label. Just her name typed. Not handwritten. She opened it. Inside, one sentence on crisp, ivory paper. "Be careful what truth you think you're holding." No signature. No hint. Just that. She looked up. Clara was walking in. Maya called out quietly. "I need to speak to you. Privately." They stepped into the records room. Maya pulled out the USB Jonathan Creel had given her. "This isn't over," she whispered. "It goes deeper. It goes back years." Clara looked over her shoulder. "What did you find?" "Transfers. Board-level fraud. Including a signature that looks like Richards, back in 2010. Approvals for shell donations, land deals, and offshore accounts." Clara's face went pale. "You think he's involved?" "I think he was. Maybe still is. Or maybe he changed. But I need to know before I hand over my soul to this mission." They stared at each other. Then Clara said, "You need to talk to Marcus again. If someone's tampering with your logs, he might be able to track where it's coming from." Maya nodded. "Set it up tonight. Off-site. That afternoon. Richard called for her. His office was the same quiet elegance, framed cityscape behind him. But today, he wasn't standing. He sat behind his desk, hands folded. "Maya," he said, his voice measured. "I understand someone approached you recently." "Jonathan Creel?" Maya didn't flinch. "Yes. He's been off the grid since 2016, a paranoid man, bitter about his dismissal, or honest about what he saw." Richard tilted his head. "You think I'm hiding something. I think everyone is hiding something, including me." "It is nowing Doc Tupper." He studied her for a moment, then tapped a button on his desk. A soft chime sounded. A moment later, a file opened on his screen. He turned it toward her. It was her father's personnel record, but redacted, half the entries blacked out. Internal memos from compliance officers. One email dated November 2004. "Williams continues to pursue unauthorized review of vendor systems. If not reassigned, recommend full suspension of access." She looked up. "You knew?" I found out 3 days ago," Richard said quietly. "When I started pulling records after your report." "Maya, I didn't know Joseph was flagged. That he tried to report Burke's activities. Then why was his departure labeled voluntary?" "1C." Richard's eyes darkened. "Because someone made it appear that way." She stood, pacing. "You approved deals back in 2010. Land deals through your brother's name. I saw the documents." Richard rose now, too. "And you think I profited? I think I need answers before I keep trusting you." He stepped forward, voice firm but not harsh. "I signed off on those documents, yes. I was young. My brother told me it was a philanthropy front, a way to expand our reach. When I found out what he did, I forced him out. You think I haven't paid for it? Have you? My marriage is gone. My board barely respects me. And now, thanks to your work, I might finally fix what I should have stopped 15 years ago." "Ed." Maya stared at him. He didn't blink. "I'm not your enemy, Maya. But if you think I am, if you really believe that, walk out now. I won't stop you." Silence. Then she said, "I don't know what I believe yet, but I know where I'll find the truth." That night, Maya met Marcus at a rented co-working space off Ashland Avenue. "I scanned your recent login logs," Marcus said, spinning his laptop around. "Guess what? Someone mirrored your access." Maya's heart thudded. "From where?" "Remote VPN. Private terminal. But I tracked the device signature." He typed rapidly, lines of code flying. "Here." He pointed. "It's from the executive floor." Maya leaned closer. "Specifically Richard Vaughn's office." "Why?" She stared at the screen. "But why would he?" Marcus shrugged. "Maybe he's tracking your work. Or maybe someone is using his terminal." Her mind reeled. Either she had just accused the one man still fighting for her, or someone was using his identity to bury her before the next move. And then Marcus clicked one more file. "You might want to see this." A video clip. Grainy. Time-stamped from 6 days ago. A security feed from the executive server room. A woman entering late at night. It wasn't Deborah. It was Greta Holmes, the new interim head of legal. "She accessed the core logs?" Maya asked. Marcus nodded. "And took something. Walked out with a drive. Whatever it was before your board report." Maya's stomach dropped. "She's not just cleaning up debris," she whispered. "She's rewriting the crime scene." Suddenly the game had shifted again. Deborah was a knight. Vaughn might be the king, but Greta might be the new queen. The next morning, Maya barely slept. Her daughter's soft breathing in the next room grounded her, but her mind refused rest. Greta Holmes, a name she'd barely registered before. Polished, discreet, utterly forgettable until now. And now, Maya couldn't forget. She arrived at Vaughn Tower by 6:30 a.m., an hour earlier than usual. The building was hushed, fluorescent lights casting long shadows across the marble floors. She went straight to Clara's office. Clara was already there. "I saw the footage," Clara said, skipping greetings. "Marcus sent it at midnight." Greta walked in, bypassed the keycard scan, and left with a drive. Maya nodded grimly. She accessed the legal archives server. That's the only place my father's sealed complaint could have been stored. Clara narrowed her eyes. You're saying Greta wiped it? I'm saying, Maya replied. She didn't just wipe it, she stole it. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Maya added, and Richard's terminal was cloned. Clara froze. You think Greta framed him? Ode. I think she's been playing both sides, Maya said. She let Deborah fall. Now she's setting Richard up. And once the old king is gone, guess who steps into power with legal authority and board confidence? Clara blinked. Greta Holmes. Maya leaned in. I want to confront her. Not with suspicion, with evidence. But I need help getting it. Clara hesitated, then picked up her phone. That afternoon, Marcus Tate walked into the 26th floor dressed in a suit borrowed from his cousin and a lanyard that read, Infrastructure Consultant. No one blinked. He made his way into the executive support room under the pretense of running a server stress test for encrypted remote backups. In reality, he was planting a script that would mirror Greta Holmes's keystrokes the moment she logged into any device tied to the Vaughn legal network. By 4:17 p.m., it was live. By 6:02 p.m., they had her. A file appeared on the mirrored feed titled Operation Sunset. Director-level redactions. It contained 3 things. The original signed complaint from Joseph Williams, Maya's father, detailing unethical practices under Burke. An internal memo from 2015 advising the destruction of the file. A motion draft from Greta Holmes, prepared but not yet filed, recommending Richard Vaughn's removal due to gross negligence in executive oversight. Clara stared at the screen. She planned this. Maya nodded. She's tying it all to Richard, making it look like he ignored my father's complaint, oversaw the cover-up, and rewarded Deborah, Clara whispered. It's brilliant, Maya murmured. It's criminal. The next morning, Richard called Maya into his office again. He looked tired. Lines deeper, tie loosened. She wants a vote, he said simply. Greta filed a motion last night with the board, claimed I knew about the shell companies, that I greenlit every one. Maya watched him. And did you? No, he said flatly. But she has a doctored chain of emails. Legal is reviewing them now. They're clever, subtle edits, wrong timestamps. We have to rate it. He looked at Maya, and for the first time, his voice broke slightly. I spent 10 years cleaning this company from the inside. I'm not a hero, but I tried, and now my own signature might take me down. Maya said nothing for a long moment. Then she pulled a flash drive from her jacket and placed it on his desk. She cloned your login, she said. She accessed the core archives. We have the logs. And the video. Richard stared at the drive. You're certain? Yes. And we're taking it to the board. Before her vote, he stood, walked to the window. You're about to start a war, Maya. I didn't start it, she said softly. But I am going to end it. By 2 p.m., the emergency board meeting had begun. Greta Holmes, composed in a slate blue suit, led with a confident tone. I regret that I must recommend Richard Vaughn's removal. The documentation I've provided outlines executive failure over multiple fiscal years and suggests complicity in unethical practices. She passed around the copies of her motion, clean, precise, damning. Then Clara stood. And I regret to inform you, she said with a half smile, that Miss Holmes has been conducting a secondary operation, unauthorized access, document tampering, impersonation of executive logins. Maya clicked the projector. Security footage rolled. Greta's eyes widened, just for a moment. Then came the keystroke logs, the video, the side-by-side timestamp overlays. Finally, the draft she never filed but saved accusing Richard based on altered documentation. The room went silent. Then the board chair turned to Greta. Miss Holmes, he said, voice cold. You are hereby suspended pending federal investigation. Greta rose slowly. You've just given this company back to a man who signed off on crimes. No, Maya said from the back of the room. We're giving it to the truth. As Greta was escorted out, Maya caught Richard's eye. He gave a quiet nod, not of triumph, of relief, but deep in her gut, Maya knew it wasn't over. Greta hadn't built this alone. There were others, watching, waiting, and the final piece hadn't yet moved. 3 weeks later, Vaughn Tower stood quieter, not in silence, but in calm. The kind that comes after a storm has passed, when broken windows are patched, and the air no longer tastes like fear. Greta Holmes was gone, facing formal charges for obstruction, wire fraud, and conspiracy. Her arrest had made headlines in the financial press, though buried beneath celebrity gossip and political distractions. Inside the building, Maya Williams had become something of a whispered name, not a ghost, but a reckoning. She's the one who took down Deborah. She survived Greta. She used to clean the floors. She'd stopped correcting them, let the rumors swirl. Because the truth was simpler. She had watched. She had listened. And when the moment came, she had acted. Now, Maya stood outside the newly christened Joseph L. Williams Integrity Center, a wing built into the 7th floor, converted from what used to be an unused event space, now turned into a training and mentorship facility. It smelled like fresh paint and coffee. Clara leaned on the doorframe beside her, holding 2 mugs. I had them start brewing dark roast instead of that vanilla junk. Maya smiled, taking hers. Progress. 18 minus Fru. Across the floor, interns and first-year employees, many of them from maintenance and admin roles, sat in sessions led by compliance experts, accountants, and even a guest speaker from the SEC. They applied in record numbers, Clara said, nodding toward the crowd. When they heard this program was founded by a woman who used to mop these same halls, they came running. Maya took a breath. She thought of her father, Joseph. Thought of how he used to hum while fixing their furnace. How he'd walk her to the bus stop. Shoes worn but polished. A man who was never bitter, even when the world gave him every reason to be. I wish he could see this, Maya said softly. Clara looked at her. He does. Later that afternoon, Maya returned to her new office, modest by corporate standards, but spacious, sunlit. A photo of Ava sat on the desk, a framed print of Joseph's old company badge on the wall. She logged into her computer to review an email flagged by Marcus. Subject: Asset Recovery Inquiry from Zurich Holdings Group. 2. Legal Oversight Division. Timestamp: 3:12 a.m. It was a paper trail, a forgotten account linked to one of the early shell companies cleared out in 2016, then reopened under a new name. The last login? 3 weeks ago. 2 days after Greta's arrest. She picked up her phone. Marcus, it's Maya. I think there's one last chapter. 2 days later, they traced it. The shell company Delta Shore Ventures was being used to hide residual funds from old offshore deals. But the most damning detail? The registered contact wasn't Deborah, or Greta, or anyone on the board. It was Samuel Lyle, a former operations director who'd quietly retired in 2018. A man whose name had surfaced twice in the earliest records of Joseph's complaints. A man who had quietly moved to the Bahamas, but not before leaving a final digital footprint. Marcus called her, voice tight. He's scheduled to fly into O'Hare next Friday. We already alerted the feds. Maya leaned back in her chair. So the last thief comes home, E10, with Padabed. That Friday, she stood at the edge of the arrivals gate at O'Hare, watching travelers stream past. Then she saw him, tall, tan, older, wearing sunglasses and walking with the self-assured pace of someone who believed the worst was behind him, until 2 plainclothes agents flanked him. Maya watched from behind a glass barrier as they spoke to him. Watched the moment realization cracked his mask. Watched as the past finally caught him. She didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She just turned and walked away. The next morning, she was home. The sun lit the kitchen. Ava sat at the counter, eating cereal, her legs swinging. Maya poured coffee and turned on the radio. A segment was playing about corporate America's hidden heroes. She stirred sugar into her mug. Listening, the host spoke about truth and integrity, and how sometimes the loudest voices weren't the bravest but the quietest watchers were. Ava looked up. Mom? Yes, baby. Were you scared? Maya smiled softly. Every day. Ava frowned. Then why did you do it? She knelt beside her daughter and tucked a curl behind her ear. Because when people pretend not to see what's wrong, bad things grow. And someone has to stop pretending. Ava thought about that, chewing slowly, then nodded. Solemn. You're kinda like Batman. Maya laughed. Maybe more like Alfred. They sat in the quiet, just a mother and her child, but behind them, a company had changed. A man had faced justice, a ghost had been heard, and somewhere far beyond the windows, the truth waited for the next person brave enough to open the door. This story reminds us that courage doesn't always roar, it often whispers in the quiet acts of those we overlook. Maya Williams, once dismissed as just a janitor, proved that integrity, resilience, and quiet observation can topple giants. The lesson is clear. No matter your title or background, your voice has power when guided by truth. In a world built on systems of silence and privilege, the most lasting change often comes from those willing to speak up when no one else will.